Welcome to the Hardwood Hustle. I'm super excited about today's episode. Something I'm passionate about is scoring more points, like a clear path to actually scoring more points. Everybody wants to, but what is the plan and what is the approach to making that happen? And so I called in the heavy hitters. We're just going to call this President's Day today. I have the president of NOAH and I've got the president of PGC, both that have committed their life to the game of basketball and making teams and players better. And so I've got some ideas on how to score some more points, but we're going to go even deeper than that. We're going to give you a plan on how to score more points. But before we jump in, I'm going to pass it over to Mano. Mano, you got an exciting announcement for us.
Yeah, great to be on with you again, TJ. It's been a while, so thanks for having me back on. And Coach is really excited to announce that we've partnered with my good friend John Carter and NOAH Basketball. And NOAH has created a product that can be utilized in high schools, private facilities, home gyms. Originally, John, NOAH is in 28 NBA used by 28 NBA teams, and you've created a product that is now available for high schools at a fraction of the price, which is really exciting. We couldn't be more thrilled to partner with you in helping to help high school coaches right across the nation help their players become better shooters quicker. So excited about our partnership together.
No, absolutely. Same here. We hold PGC in high regard and you two guys in high regard. And so it's really important to us to partner with people that are pushing the game forward. And we believe the PGC family, that's the family we want to build the user base around with the NOAH Backboard product. So we're excited. This is a named podcast about scoring more points. I have a lot to say about that, and I know you do as well, Mano.
Yeah, well, I appreciate both you guys being on today, and we've actually got our NOAH in our gym, and I'm absolutely loving it. More importantly, my players are loving it, and we'll get to that in just a minute, like how it can help your players, and it already has helped my team. But we want to give you a clear path on how to score more points, and there's a lot of things that go into that, but we're just going to give you 3 specific things that are going to lead to that. And I don't like to toot my own horn, but this is something I'm super passionate about. And we were the 3rd most efficient team in the country in Division II out of 350 teams last year. And between Division II, Division I, Division III, we were the 11th most efficient team offensively in the country. And it comes from a desire and a passion to want to help my team succeed and figure out how to put the ball in the basket. So I spend so much time thinking about this. And I think we have a really good, clear path for you today on you can help your team score more points this way. So we're going to talk about the first one is generating good shots. And so you can do, and it works both the first and the third point. You can do all the right things, but if you don't get number 1 right and you don't get number 3 right, it's going to be a problem. It's the same thing if you don't get number 2 right. And so if you got 1 and 2 right, but not 3, you're in trouble. If you get 1 and 3, 2, you got to get these 3 things right to be able to score more efficiently. So the first one is generating good shots. And I think that clarity is super important here. What do we want our team to get? One of the things we've been specifically using NOAH is our shooting charts right now. So we're going back there and we're looking, and what helps us to find out what are the actual places where our team makes a lot of shots. And so getting data. And this used to be something we wished we had because, NBA teams had this, but not everybody else had it. And now we have this information. So I don't mean to be harsh here, but you're kind of archaic if you're not using this information. You're guessing. You're guessing on, is this a shot we want or is this not a shot we want? So, Mano, I'm going to kick it over to you here really, really quickly. And when you think about generating good shots, what comes to mind?
Well, what you said around clarity, because most coaches haven't gotten really clear with their players on what shots they want their players to be shooting. And probably more importantly, what shots they don't want their players to be shooting. So I think it starts with you as a coach really knowing what are we trying to get out of our offense, and do our players clearly understand what those shots look like and what those shots are.
Yeah. And so before we get into actually generating those through offense, John, I got a question for you. It's what are the analytics telling us? And how do we go about using that to make sure that we now know what kind of shot we're trying to build for. So if you go in and you're like, you know what, I love flex and we're going to run flex, right? So it leads to a lot of, let's just say, mid-range jumpers and, maybe some tough drives into traffic and whatever. And you're like, but you just love the offense and occasionally you get a good shot out of it, but you don't actually know if that's what you should be hunting. So how do we go about figuring out what we should be hunting?
Well, the first thing you do is collect some data, as you referred to earlier. A lot of times teams are better than they think they are at that mid-range, or they're better than they think they are at certain spots on the floor as far as shooting the three. But I think it really starts with collecting some data and understanding where on the court you're efficient, not only for your team, but also for each individual player. We have found through collecting, well over 500 million basketball shots now, there's a large percentage of players that have tendencies that no one's aware of. And if you're aware of what those tendencies are, no question, you can train them out.
Yeah. And so here's how I like to reverse engineer this when I'm thinking about offense. So I hear like, we got to know what wins, what shots win. And after collecting all of this data, there's been proof as to like, hey, how important a three and an uncontested three, shots at the rim, getting to the foul line because you're putting pressure on the rim. So we know those things generally when you're building out your offense. These are things that we want to get. Now, how do we go back and build towards getting those shots? And then you get even a little bit more specific and you take something like a shot map and you know what the percentage guy shoots from corner threes or whatever. And you're like, now specifically for my team, I know what wins generally. Now specifically, I know my team can do this well. Now, how do I go about getting those shots? And I think this is where shot generation comes from, because a good offensive coach is going to know what they're hunting first of all. Like, what should I be trying to get my team? And then you're going and you're saying, how do I get my team to buy into getting those shots, whether it's running some sort of Princeton offense, whether it's running read and react offense, whether it's we need to get in transition and get more offensive threes, whatever it is. And it's going to be different. The answer is going to be different for every team, because you're going to have different types of players. But you have to know, first of all, what types of shots are going to win for our team overall and what types of shots I need for my team. So we'll talk a little bit more later as we get into that. But I'm going to move to the second point, because 1 and 2 are going to kind of go with each other a little bit. But this second one is shot selection. Mano, this is something we've been really passionate about, and we've taught at PGC for a long time. Dick DeVenzio has done an amazing job of creating this year. So this is one of those things that's been timeless. So let's just say we got to the point on how we generate these shots. Now it's a whole nother ballgame to actually get our players to pick these shots and to turn down the ones that are no good, AKA the Spurs, turn down a good for a great, And this is also driven by numbers. This is where we're trying in the preseason to determine our Scots. And I want you to expand on that in a second, Mano. But we're trying to determine our Scots. Well, how do we determine our Scots? Well, what we're using right now is data. So I want you to explain what Scots are, all right? And then how the data, John, can help drive picking those particular spots for players. Go ahead, Mano.
Yeah, a Scot, Dick DeVenzio coined this term, and a Scot is basically your scoring spot, where a player, potentially even a team, but where each individual player is going to be most proficient from. A place on the floor where a player can consistently make shots. And players should also know where their Scot is not, their scoring spots are not, where they should just be, if they don't have the range to shoot threes, they should be thinking about, I've either got to get the ball out of my hands and keep the ball moving, or I need to attack the rim and get to one of my scoring spots. So a really helpful tool to have a conversation, coaches, with your players so that they're not shooting shots that are outside of their Scot, outside of their scoring spots, outside of places where outside of where they can consistently make shots. So that's the first and foremost piece, TJ. And then the second piece that Dick DeVenzio, founder of PGC, introduced was this concept of a shot selection chart. And a shot. You want me to go into the shot selection chart now?
Yeah, go back to
that. All right. So the shot selection chart is really a point system to help players, to help your team clearly understand what a good shot is and what a good shot isn't, based on however you as a coach define what a good shot is. And the way PGC founder Dick DeVenzio defined it was, there are no 10 out of 10 shots. Even pros miss dunks. So the highest shot that he had in the 1 to 10 rating was a 9 out of 10. And the 9 out of 10 is a gimme. A 9 out of 10, you might get 3 or 4 times a game that every player on the team should be able to make 90 or 99% of the time. That's a 9. A 7 is, and Dick intentionally just had 9 7s, 5s, 3s. And 1. So we'll cover the 9 next. The 7. The 7 is the shot that everyone in the gym wants you to take. It's the shot that you work so hard for in your offensive set to get what we call a yes shot, where the coach is going to say yes, whether it goes in or not. The coach feels great about the shot selection, the shot choice, and so you want to hunt 7s as a team. A 5 is a so-so shot. It's kind of more like a 50-50 shot. Might go in half the time, may not, but it's a shot that you're willing to take if you can't get a 7 in a given possession, but it's not what you're really going after. And then there's the 3s. The 3 is really a 30% shot. A 3 is a shot that you've got to chuck up at the end of a quarter. The shot clock is winding down and you can't get a 7 or a 5, and you have to settle for some off balance, out of range, contested shot. And whereas a 7 is going to be a shot that a player is taking that's in range with adequate time, that is not contested. And so as a team, helping your players to hunt 7s, and to look for opportunities to create 9s. Obviously, 9s most often come in transition, but to be hunting 7s consistently. How do you get your players to do that? Two ways. One is daily conversation. You got to be talking to your players about what a 7 is and what a 5 and what a 3 is consistently, so that they know. And then secondly, you can actually use games to reinforce it. And TJ, I know you've done that with some of your practices, so we can come back to how to do that in practice situations.
Yeah, and really important. So, coaches, you need to hear this. What we're talking about here is eliminating the gray. And this is why offense struggles. This is why we don't shoot high percentages. This is why we don't tap out our percentage. Is there's so much gray area in the game of basketball. A parent thinks this, a player thinks this, a coach thinks that, and we've got to get out of the gray area. And so what you're hearing are tactics you can use to get out of the gray area. So number one, the high level of clarity, like what shots are we trying to generate? Once you have clarity on that, it's not, well, I like this, or I like that, or I like this action or that action. No. We are trying specifically to get this. I know it. The players know we're all after the same thing. And then you move on, you're like, well, okay, well, this player thinks that, or that player thinks that. No, we need defined roles. Like in their Scots, what are their actual Scots? What are the places that they're good? And they need to know it. We need to know it, because then they know I need to turn down this shot, or I don't need to turn that shot. Then we give you the shot chart that eliminates the gray area. You get clarity with your team on what is a 7, and that's different for every player. And John, I'm gonna come to you a second, ask like, all right, well, how do we actually determine a 7? How do we determine that that's a good shot? And so then we get that and we understand this is a 7, this is a 5, but there's going to be some arguing going on. Well, I think this is a 7 for me. Well, I think this is a 5 for me. I think this is a 3. Well, look, that's more gray. Okay, let's eliminate that gray right there. John, how do we get that? How do we actually get numbers and knowledge behind, so that we can actually have a conversation with the player and not be like, you look, I'm sorry, but that's not a 7 for you. I mean, we like at PGC the terminology. I think good coaching uses the terminology. It's not a 7 yet for you, but maybe we can get you to a 7. But how do we actually put some numbers behind it? So it's not coach said, player thinks. Like, we need to actually know if that's a good shot for them.
Sure. No, well, I love that terminology. But that's an area that we can really, really help someone. We've had several coaches, especially at the NBA and college level and at the high school level. But now, as you guys know, we're making a really big push into the high school market with our new product. But NOAH, and I've heard coaches say this many times, NOAH just collects the data, guys. This is kind of thinking of me talking to a player. And if I look at the data, and the beautiful thing of having the app the way we have it now, it's so easy to get to the numbers. You can see what a player's NOAH rating is from anywhere on the court. Now, each coach may establish their own scale. You know, for example, if I'm an elite program, and we only take really good threes that, where players make, I don't know, 37% or more. They may establish that if you don't have a NOAH rating from this spot on the floor of 75 or more, that's not a really good shot for you. Or you could take just strictly a percent made approach to it, because you have that data all over the court. And so I think that's, same thing we said earlier about collecting some data. Another thing I would tell you that we've had such great success with, and I think this is going to have a huge impact on high school sports in general. A lot of players are pretty good from 15 feet in, but that's not a very popular shot anymore. But players at the high school level, less than 10% of players, less than 10%, a really small number, are shooting in the acceptable range of the average arc and the average shot depth. It's actually 8.8%. We did hundreds of high schools and looking at this a few years ago. It's very consistent no matter where you are. And the number one range killer is not always just strength. It's the trajectory of the shot. The players that shoot too high, they absolutely just don't have effective range out past the 3-point line. And so not only can we identify who really that would be a 7 shot for, but also what's the path? What's the path to being a 7 from the 3-point line, from the right corner, from the left baseline, or whatever the case might be? We can absolutely help teams there. But you just need to collect, and it doesn't take, you don't have to collect 10,000 shots. You collect a reasonable amount of data. You're going to have a really good idea of where your players are, and you're going to have something to sit down with players and show them and compare them, because you're going to have all the teams' data, and you can do a quick comparison. We also do percentile rankings of where a kid ranks compared to other high school players around the country.
And let's be honest about it. In the day and time that we're living in, oftentimes technology speaks louder than a coach. You know what I mean? Like it's just a reality. Like I hate it sometimes, but it also has made my job easier. We've been able to have these conversations, and we've had NOAH for a couple of weeks, but after 3 to 4 days, I was able to have conversations that I couldn't have before, because it was no longer I said, they thought. It was no. Here's the facts. Here's where we're at. This is why I don't want you shooting a first pass transition 3, is because right now when I look at this data, you're our 9th best shooter, and that might hurt some feelings a little bit. But at the same time, and I might frame it like this: what I'd love for you to do is to get in the top 4. And so we're going to need more time in the gym. Now we both win, because now they've got a goal and I've got a player in the gym more. Like that's important for me and important for them. Look, we're going to move to the third one. We're going to come back and tie all 3 and talk more about these 3, but it segues well, John, into the third one. So let's just say your team is generating really good shots. All right. And let's say your team knows exactly what their Scots are and what their spots are, and they know the shot chart and the shot selection chart, and they're taking those shots. There could be a third reality here. They don't make them. You know what I mean? Like they're just not good enough. Like they're just not good enough to do that place. And that is something that honestly, a lot of us live in that world, and that we can't neglect the player development. We can't neglect the more better shooters we have, the easier offense gets. And so how do we go about creating actual better shooters? And I've really enjoyed this, and I've thought about it all my years of coaching. Like this has been a central point for me. Like at the end of the day, basketball, it comes down to this: can you put the ball in the basket? Right. And we can get all the other stuff right, but if it's not going in the basket, if we don't have players that can make those shots, and this is sometimes where I think we think as coaches we can work magic. Like we can make winners out of players that can't make shots. That's not true. Like we have to have players capable of doing that. And if you had a team full of players that nobody can make shots, I would say don't even go work on your offense. Just go work on shots. Like just go work on making shots, because your offense does not going to matter at that point. And so we talk about this. We tell them to keep their elbow in. We told them to hold their follow through. We tell them all these things, but we don't actually know. And this is one of my pet peeves. And one of the things that I think about all the time is like, is what we're actually doing making a difference? Are we going in the gym and are we spending 5 hours, or are we spending 5 hours and we know we're getting better? So John, I want you to break down how you can actually use NOAH to get that data, to understand where somebody's at, how to be able to get somebody better. And I firsthand have been able to experience this recently just in our own gym, and I want to share some of my experiences too, if it's okay, but they got to make shots. You've got the data. I mean, what is it, like a couple million shots you guys have tracked? I mean, some crazy number. What's the number?
No, we're not too far off of a billion.
Not too far off a billion. Okay, so I undershot it a little bit, just under a billion shots tracked right there. And I'm imagining when you get close to a billion that there's some real data there.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about like how do we go about this? And I know like we've been specifically week one, we spent all of our time on ARC. And now we've kind of been going week by week, and we're in depth week right now is what we're working on. But I want you to break that down. Give an understanding to our coaches how it can work.
Well, one of the things that was the most shocking to me when we first started collecting data, keep in mind I've been at this for 20 years, it's amazing how often players miss short. It's like the biggest cardinal sin out there in basketball. And so we found, like at the NBA level and the NCAA level, that number, and we've worked hard on that. They miss short more often than they miss long as well. But we've got them now. They're less than, it's 1.8, 1.9 to 1 compared to short misses versus long misses. But that number at the high school level is as much as 5 to 1. It's unbelievable how much of an impact a coach can have. Now, you're going to have the most impact if you get NOAH, you collect data, you do all the things we've been talked about here. But if you'll just take from this podcast and go back to your players and say, when we're doing a workout, if you don't hit the rim at least 1 out of 3 shots, 1 out of 4 shots, that's a problem. We're going to miss short. And so that's the biggest thing I point out is, and that's everywhere. There's no exceptions to that. And so just getting the mentality of getting the ball deep in the basket. So you guys have heard me say this many times, but I'll say for the audience here, there's 2 types of guaranteed scores. One's the swish. Everybody loves that shot. But there are still people out there, not at the NBA or the college level much anymore, by the way, still people out there training players that you want to swish every shot, giving extra points in some type of a contest or a drill for swishing every shot. That's bad teaching. I hate to say it. I grew up doing it. We all, most all of us did. But there's the 2 types of guaranteed scores. One's the swish. The other one is what we call a Brad shot, which stands for back, rim, and down. If the top half of the basketball, and I know everyone can't see this, if the top half of the basketball hits the back of the rim, it's just going to score, okay? Turn on an NBA game tonight, see how often those great shooters hit the back of the rim. And it always shocks everyone when they hear this for the first time. So get the ball deep in the basket, give it a fighting chance. Don't be that team that misses that misses short 5 times more often than you miss long. And so there's percentage points to be had there today. And we measure that down to the fraction of an inch so that you can see exactly where a player's shooting on shot depth. The center of the rim is 9 inches, everybody knows. We found the optimal depth based on those hundreds of millions of shots is 11 inches deep in the basket. So it's 2 inches past center. That's where the pro guys, that's where the Steph Currys of the world shoot it. And it's amazing what a difference that makes. So the other thing I'll point out is the high shooters. We all know flat shooting's bad. We get all that. The high shooters, they tend to miss short as much as 8 or 10 times more often than they miss long. The high shooter just doesn't get it there. All their power is going up. So they're not getting the ball deep enough in the basket. Their range is greatly affected because all their power is going up. That is the quickest fix out there is the moonball shooters. And sometimes we have had actual documented cases of players going from 25% from 3 to 40% from 3 by lowering their arc. And that is just a shock to everyone. And then the last piece is the left-right. We can give left-right feedback as well as the arc or the depth. And it'll be really interesting as you add this to your players. You can absolutely tighten up that left-right spray pattern just with the feedback by the player focusing. But what it'll tell you also is, well, do I really need to go in and take a deeper dive on my mechanics if my left-right is really poor? Because, again, we're going to give you percentiles. And so you're going to be able to see, okay, wow, here on arc, I'm in the 70th percentile compared to other high school or other college players, pro, et cetera. But my left-right's at 20%. So now I know what I need to work on. And that's a really key piece to it as well. The one last point I want to make based on what you said earlier about technology, in 20 years of doing this, the most common quote I've gotten, whether it's a pro coach or a college or a high school or a youth league, is this generation of players will not argue with the technology. They will argue with the coach, or the coach will say, yeah, coach, yeah, okay, that's right. But and I've heard this many times, coach say, but if NOAA says they have a 38-degree arc, they must have a 38-degree arc. And they don't argue with that. So,
Man, can you imagine what this would have done for your career, Mono, if you had this right here? I mean, this is but a couple of things, John, that stuck out to me. First of all, like just long, deep held beliefs that aren't true. You know what I mean? Like that is one of the things, like more arc, more arc, more arc. I would have never imagined that saying less arc will improve your shot. I would have never imagined that. Another thing that stuck out to me is I remember as a kid, um, Larry Bird talking about what he aimed for was a back of the rim rung on the net. Like that's what he aimed for. And I was like, that's a weird thing to aim for, right? And then we look at one of the greatest shooters of all time, and like he had a target and it was back of the rim. And then things just keep coming up. Lenny Acuff, who's at Stanford, great shooting teams, right? And like he starts out his practice with Brad shooting, like back of the rim. And so like I start putting all these pieces together, and you're wondering why great shooters, why great shooting coaches, like what are they actually doing? And it's like one thing after another starts to come together and it starts to click. Now that we've had the opportunity to experience it and go through it with our team, what I recognize is different players have different problems. Like we have one player, it looks really good coming out of his hand, but we've been having him go through a shooting drill where he has to shoot 45 or higher 5 times in a row because he can't get the ball over 41. And it just, you keep going over and over again. And now it's improved his shot a ton. But it goes back to the important thing here is like, and coaches, what you want to know is like, how do I score more points? And if you're not generating good shots, you're not going to score more points. And if you don't understand how to select good shots and what shots they need to be hunting, you're not going to score more points. And then finally, and you can almost throw these in reverse, like let's just get the ball to go in the bucket first, and then everything else is going to get better as we go along. But these three things have to happen. So I want to unpack all three of those at a little bit of a deeper level right here. One of the things that you also have, and we didn't even mention this, John, when we were just starting to learn this because we've only had it for a couple of weeks, but you can actually track this in games. So going back to Mono's shot selection and what's happening in a game is you go back and you look at your shot chart and you can say, hey, we try to generate these types of shots. We had our first scrimmage, young team. We go back and we talk about what kind of shots we're trying to generate. And 34 of our 71 shots were shots we were not trying to generate. Right? And so sometimes it takes numbers. Like you have to go back, and we had to watch as a team all 34 of those shots. And then I went back to their shot charts and be like, where in this is this what we were looking for? And they're like, well, someone would say, well, coach, I mean, it looked like it was a good shot, or I felt like we didn't have much time. I'd be like, look, we had 28 seconds left on the shot clock. And so we have to have those conversations. Going back to what you talked about, why are conversations so important?
Well, to create alignment, to help your players really understand. So many times what a coach thinks a good shot is and what a player thinks their good shot is so vastly different. But having those conversations and being able to look at the data as you did, TJ, with your team, and having that conversation over and over again over a period of days and weeks will change how the players are thinking about shot selection and the shots that they're going to take. And that's going to change behavior over time. And the more data that you have to have those conversations, the quicker you're going to get your players to buy in and actually make changes.
Yeah. And then specifically having those conversations also when it comes to their actual shooting. And this is one that prior to technology weren't able to have, because it was a lot of like, I think this or I think that. And then that player might be getting a different feedback from their trainer or from their parent or from somebody else. And like, we needed that to align. Like we needed the workout to be the same every single time. So we had a shooting workout recently that we've enjoyed doing, is just keeping it simple. Because a lot of times the numbers and the technology can be overwhelming to coaches. Like we actually have a coach here in our program that when we put the NOAH in there was like a little bit overwhelming. Like, okay, there's numbers and data and whatever. Once you get to know it, it's actually crazy simple. And so for instance, we come in there and we said, hey, I want you to shoot 100 shots. And we had a manager down there tracking, and how many can you go between 43 and 47? Because I'm going to come to you in a second, John, and ask what is the actual ideal arc. But how many could we get between 43 and 47? And so we had four of our better shooters, I should say, go and do it. And our best shooter shot 100 out of 100 shots between 43 and 47, right? And then our second best player had I think it was 87 or 88 out of that, right? Then we had another player that shot somewhere around 70 something, another one player in like maybe the low 70s. So everybody shot over 70 in that range because they knew that was the targeted goal. But I mean, who do you think made the most? I mean, it was, 100 of his shots out of 100 between 43 and 47, and they ended up making 81 out of 100 threes right there. That's just a really, really good number, but 81 out of 100, just keeping it in that range. And so talk to me a little bit about like why that arc is important. What is that actual number they're looking for? And just give a little bit more of the why behind the what, John. Like, because people are going to say, yeah, well, that shot, it looks good, or that one looks good, but there's actual science-backed data behind this.
Sure. Well, 43 to 47 is the ideal range. Okay. 45 is the perfect entry angle. And we're measuring entry angle, not launch angle. So everything we're measuring is at the rim. And so, you can go to our Science of Shooting tab on our website, and you can see a chart from hundreds of millions of shots that shows the peak at 45 degrees. So what happens is, first off, everybody understands if you shoot flat, the space just closes up. You're not going to shoot a good percentage. Also, as you just pointed out, no player shoots exactly the same arc every time. About the best a player can do is plus or minus 2 degrees. But when you add defense and you add game type shots, whatever, that range expands. Now it might be plus or minus 3, plus or minus 4 degrees. So now it gets even harder. So let's say you're averaging 41, so the shots that are above 41 got a good chance of scoring. But what happens, those below 41, now you're down in the 30s, and now that rim is just closing up. And so you're just never going to be able to have a really great percentage there. When you go above, so let's say you go to 50, which is super common in high schools. It's very common to even have players shooting in the 50s, so way up in the 50s. You effectively lose control of the shot. The physics, and I don't have slides to show here, but I think I can explain it. So, for example, let's say I'm shooting a shot that comes into the rim at 45 degrees. The next time I do everything the same with the same power, same everything, and it comes in at 43 degrees, the ball moves just very little at the rim, in the range of 1.5 inches or so. If I do that same thing and I shoot in the 50s and I miss by 2 degrees with same power, same everything, at the rim, the ball moves 7 inches. 7 inches just from one, and you can't even see the difference in that shot. It's that close. So it's just the physics comes into play here. And so basically what we found, forget about the flat shooting. Everybody knows that it's bad. You don't have enough space. In the mid 40s versus everything above, especially when you go 50 or above, the spray pattern at the rim, each little change in the trajectory, the ball moves around too much. And so, yes, you have more space, but the loss of control more than offsets the gain in space. And so the bottom line is you want to shoot at a level where you can control the basketball. And we have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that is in the mid-40s. And the more consistent you are, the better. You're a guy that's like, I was just sitting there thinking back all the times I've done, college demos when we were trying to get started. And high schools as well, I would always ask a coach, hey, bring me your best shooter, bring me your worst shooter. Or bring me a couple of your best ones, a couple of your worst. And the best shooters were always like your shooter. They were the most consistent. They were in the mid-40s. They generally got the ball deep in the basket. And the worst ones were either the really flat shooters or the really high shooters. And so it just allowed me to prove the entire point with their own players right in front of their eyes.
Yeah, and let me tell you one thing that I think is super important with this, that I think it's so many times we go in and shoot and it's attached to the outcome or of make or miss. And what we've done with our players is unattach that and just realize like a good product is going to produce a good byproduct, meaning we go in there and shoot 100 times between 43 and 47 and don't even worry about whether you make or miss it. It's going to happen for you, right? And then we can go and fix the next one, whatever it is. Maybe it's their depth in the rim or whatever it might be. And we go try and shoot, 80 out of 100 from that area. And what I found is players, when they lock into something specific, not just the emotion of I make or miss a shot, then they actually are training specific to get better in that area. So it's been one of my favorite things to see is that they go in there, just shoot 100, concentrate on that number. It's calling it out over the loudspeaker in there. Or we have players that are doing the workouts with their ear pods in, which is a really cool ad too, John. I don't know, probably some young person on your team thought of that.
Yeah,
I would have never
so.
thought of that, right? But put the ear pods in and they're listening to it. It's like, just concentrate on that. And then at the end, so we didn't count how many makes or misses each one of those players did. We just counted 43 seconds. And then we came back, and like clockwork, the one with the most 43 to 47 comes in and you get it. And you can do that with any one of the left, right, the arc or the depth right there. I think it's really cool to be able to do that. And look, I might sound like I'm geeking out a little bit on this, but bottom line, I love winning. I hate to admit how much I love winning, but I love winning. And I want to find ways to win ball games. And I know how important all of these things are. And I know that if we can't generate good shots, like that's my fault. Like I got to do a better job of getting good shots. And then if we can, as a team, go in there and sacrifice good ones for great ones, and we can't understand our shots, and then we're just going to be a team that shoots a bunch of average shots, and we're going to put our game up for hope. And then if we go in there and we're just not even capable of making the shots, then it's just going to be a long season to start with, and we're going to have a hard time no matter what we do. And so I get pretty, I don't want to say obsessed, but I get pretty excited about this stuff because I want to score more points, because as a coach, I know my team's going to win more games. So, hey, I want to get some final thoughts, and then Mano, have you wrap us up. But I want to get a final thought from you, Mano, and a final thought from you, John, on things that we haven't added. And then, Mano, you can wrap us up. But go ahead, Mano.
Yeah, on that, the third point that John spoke about, what has stood out to me with the NOAH backboard system the most is the immediate instant audio feedback of hearing what your arc was, or hearing what your depth or right left was. And for me as a shooter, I was an average shooter in college, but I trained like somebody who was a lights out shooter. The only thing was, I didn't know why I was missing or how to change it. And all my coaches said was, get in the gym and shoot more shots. I was getting in the gym and shooting thousands of shots. I just didn't know what I needed to be correcting. And I know there are thousands of players, probably tens of thousands, who fit into that same category, and coaches who want their players to improve. So I just wanted to mention the audio feedback. When I saw that for the first time, John, and actually heard it, and took a shot myself and heard the arc called out on every shot, I mean, you can instantly correct and adjust, and you know what to correct and adjust for. As a player, I didn't know what to correct or adjust for, so I didn't actually know how to get better. That's one of the things I love the most. And with my son Isaac, who's been a flat shooter, get tired of just saying more arc, and then turning around and coming back 2 minutes later and he was shooting flat again. And what I love about what you've created is a player can self-correct after every single shot and adjust for the next shot.
Yeah. And one of the things that came to mind for me as you were saying that, Mano, is I think about this all the time, is like ROI, how are we getting a good return on investment? Like, how do we know that we're actually getting better and we're doing that? And this is one of the first things, and we have a gun, and I love the gun. It helps our players get in there and get more shots and get up more time. But going back to what you said, I don't know if they're good shots or bad shots. They're just getting more, right? And so I know I'm happy that they're getting more. I'm happy that they're in the gym. But one of the things that has been super exciting about the NOAH is, for the first time, I feel like when I'm not in the gym, they're actually getting better. And that, as coaches, one of our biggest difficulties is like gym time. Like, how many times can we get our players together? How much can we practice? There's never enough practice time. There's never enough whatever. And I don't know what they're working on. Like, I mean, I have some players that can dribble 7 balls and spin one on their head, but they can't handle a ball in the game, right? Like, so they're not, it's great that they've got all that in, but they don't actually know how to control a defender. Well, I think the same thing here. Like, the thing that has been, of all things, most exciting to me is that I cannot be in the gym and know my players are getting better. Like, honestly, like I check my app at night before I go to bed, and I check it first thing in the morning, and I'm like looking at like, hey, how many shots did so and so get up? What does their shot chart look like? Because I feel like I worked without working, and I don't know how many times I've ever been able to do that in the game of basketball. Maybe in different parts of your life, you have an investment that's going well or something's going good. But I've not had many times in my coaching career where I've been able to not work and still feel like we're getting better. So that's something that's super exciting. John, let me get your final thoughts here.
No, I'm just, again, just super excited about this partnership. I also want to point out how excited I am about this product, the NOAH Backboard. This is the product, guys, I've wanted to build for 20 years. This is the product that, we've had a product that we've sold to pro teams and college teams. We've had a lot of success there. And, but we now have a product that is affordable. And, a high school coach can get started as little as $1,500 plus the $1,200 a year service fee. And the tech has gotten better. And we have been monitoring the tech and everything that's going on from a development standpoint and sensors. And when this particular sensor came out, I got extremely excited about 3 years ago. And we went to work, and we now have hundreds of those systems out there in the field. They're performing well. We're super excited about moving this forward. So yeah, just excited all the way around about the product, about this partnership.
Yeah, Mano, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap us up with some final thoughts, and then but before we do that, I would say this one, and this may be a little bit direct, but I know we have coaches on here. We have an awesome Hardwood Hustle like just group of people that would like some of the most dedicated coaches that I've ever been around. Like the emails and the texts and things we get back, just like super thankful for our Hardwood Hustle group because they're just they're special. They're a different kind of coach. And so I just want to make this one point that I think is super important to them is like we go and we raise money from our booster clubs and we do different things and we think about getting another sweatshirt. We think about but I know our coaches are super excited about getting better, or else they wouldn't be listening to the podcast. I would probably trade that sweatshirt for every player in your program or that warm up next year or this year or whenever you have that time to raise that money for a NOAH system because your players get better. Your team gets better. Everybody feels better about the situation. Your team's in the gym more. And so just think about, and I get it, like, John, I wanted NOAH way back when, and I'll be honest with you, I just couldn't afford it, right? Like I just couldn't afford it. I didn't know how we would put it up. And now it's so small, simple, and easy to install. And now we can afford it. And now it's one of those things like, I don't know why we didn't have this sooner. In fact, we didn't just stop with one. We've got another one now. And so our team's going to be on multiple goals so people that can be using it multiple times. But I think I would just be my encouragement to our listeners is like, put your money on the things that you really, truly care about, the things that are actually going to make your team better. Mano, wrap us up here.
Yeah. Well, to all of our coaches listening, hope you enjoyed learning how to help your players take better shots, make better shots, generate better shots, have the daily conversation so that they're shooting from their Scots, their scoring spots, so that where you're using the scoring, the shot selection chart. So they're looking for and hunting sevens instead of settling for threes and fives. Do those things, and you're going to put more points on the scoreboard. And then, as we've said here at the tail end of this podcast, couldn't be more excited, John, to partner with you and your NOAH backboard system that you've created. Love that you found a way to take something that has been in NBA arenas, WNBA facilities, Division I college programs and facilities, and found a way to make it accessible to the masses. We come across a lot of technologies, and for most, we'll take a look at them and say, that seems pretty good, or that might be able to help him move the needle, but not something that we felt comfortable really getting behind. But when we saw what you're doing for young players and teams and coaches to help them just improve their shooting and ultimately helping them to win more games, we were excited to get behind it and to support and help fan the flame of what you've created to help see it get in the hands of as many coaches as possible. Because as a player myself who desperately wanted to be a great shooter and just didn't know how, I want to see players everywhere be able to become the type of shooter that they want to be. And as you said, TJ, for coaches out there, that's what coaches want as well. So grateful for our partnership, John. I'll just mention, TJ, for any coaches listening, just go to NOAHbackboard.com, and it's NOAHbasketball.com, and then go to the backboard system. John, anything to add on that note on how coaches can get more details?
No, I'd just say go to the website. There's lots of details on there to show you how simple it is to install, to show you the different features and different things. But yeah, go to NOAHbasketball.com, click on the products page, and go to NOAH Backboard. And there's all kinds of information there. We also have a webinar every Monday that you can sign up for. But if you fill out a contact us form, the rep in your area will give you a call.
Yeah, we currently have been just doing a shooting drills every single day with NOAH, with our team. And I'm going to drop some of those in our PGC Coaching Facebook group. So for those coaches that, I know a few of you already have it and a few more thinking about getting it, like it's going to put some drills in there, things we're working on with our team to be able to track every single day. And we'll try and make those videos accessible. But the coolest thing I've done this year with my team is put this sign up in the locker room where they can walk in and scan and get NOAH right there and track their shots. So they're just easily going in it. Every day, it's right in front when they walk in. They scan, they go out, they get a shooting workout in. I get the information. My team's getting better as I'm just sitting in the office, which is an awesome feeling. John and Mano, I really appreciate you guys sharing. And we'll go deeper on these. As our listeners know in the Hard Hustle, like we could go for hours on generating shots. We could go for hours on choosing the right shots. We could go for hours on how to make better shooters and how to actually operate the NOAH to make sure it's how we could go on all of these. So we'll have more podcasts on these because we know at the end of the day, you're out here searching to make ways to make your team better. And so, guys, I really appreciate you joining. Coaches, as always, we appreciate you being dedicated Hardwood Hustle listeners. And if you got any thoughts or any ideas or any questions, you can also hit us up at Hardwood_Hustle. Be happy to direct you to the right place. NOAHbasketball.com if you want to check that out and become one of the up-and-coming innovative coaches, which is actually putting in good work with scientific data to back it. Go check that out. So, hey, listen, I am TJ with two awesome guests, Mano and John, and that is the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.